Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We've got Jenna Harner on from Channel 11 WPXI, and we got to talk about Aaron Rodgers because he spoke on the Pat McAfee show. What did he say? Is he any closer to a decision? What things did we learn from that? Also talking more about how the offense can fit around whether or not Aaron Rodgers is there or isn't there, what they need to be like this year, and still focusing on the right future plans in the draft as the draft is next week. All here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And as I said before, we're joined by Jenna Harner. She is back on this show. It's been a minute since we've had Jenna on. Jenna, how you doing?
It's been a minute. I'm doing well. I'm so glad to be back. It's been kind of a nice little spring. Now we're sort of getting into spring. I don't really know. It's been cold for all of April, I feel like, here in Pittsburgh. So nice that the weather's finally breaking a little bit and we're heading full speed ahead towards the draft here.
Yeah, it makes me want to punch a groundhog in the face. But I could use it to warm up a little bit faster. But things did warm up, at least on the news front, for a little bit, even if nothing official was really gleaned from it. Aaron Rodgers made an appearance on the Pat McAfee show. It was billed as, being some big news. And ultimately, if your question is, well, did he announce if he's going to the Steelers? He did not. It was none of that. Now, I do think clearly Aaron Rodgers had a point coming on here because he seemed really miffed about the rumor mills saying all the things that were being spread out him. And he talked about different things. Of the things that are relevant to the Steelers, the things that he did clip, he said he's still in contact with the Steelers. He's talked to Mike Tomlin a lot. He says he's even more than what he thought he was from afar. He praised him a lot. He also praised Arthur Smith and Tom Arth, the Steelers quarterbacks coach. So a lot of good things to say about them. A lot of good things to say about DK Metcalf in their workout. But ultimately, Jenna, still coming into this and saying, I don't know what I want. And he said, hey, I have personal things going on in my life, was very vague about that, and just kind of kept it at its distance. What was your takeaway from what we all stopped and watched for an hour to see, was anything actually going to happen?
I feel like on a beautiful Thursday, at least here in Pittsburgh, everybody wasted an hour of their afternoon. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just that nothing changed. I feel like I didn't learn any new information. I guess my big takeaway was the whole situation with the Jets and how Aaron Glenn was basically like, hey, we're moving on and we're going in another direction. That was kind of the only big takeaway I really got here. Nothing, the needle didn't move. And it was interesting because obviously, everybody's live tweeting this and we're seeing all these reactions on Twitter as it's happening. To me, there was a lot of people I saw who were just like, oh, well, it feels like he's going to retire. I'm like, I feel like you can't make any sort of definitive, he's going to do this, this, and this. And it feels like we're exactly where we started or exactly where we were before he came on the Pat McAfee show on Thursday and said everything that he said for the hour that he was on.
I think that's the thing here. I want to read these exact quotes from when talking about his decision. He says, quote, I'm trying to be open to everything and not specifically attached to a decision. I'm not holding anyone hostage. I've been upfront from the beginning. I don't mean any disrespect to anyone on a team. I'm just going through a lot in my personal life, and that has to take priority. He said precedent, but I was like, that's not the right word. Anyways, he then said, I don't think it was fair to the Steelers or anyone to force them to make a decision while I deal with a lot of things off the field. The people that know. The people that don't make bleep up about me. And I was like, okay, I hear that. I get that there might be something going on with Aaron Rodgers' personal life, and I empathize with that because you know what, there's stuff in my life that people don't understand. Something might be going on at the time, but. Everyone will assume what's going on. But I think the big thing is that people are still waiting to hear what's going to happen when, who is Aaron Rodgers going to sign with the Steelers? I think it further emphasizes that the Steelers' plan was, he also said he'd be cool with taking $10 million and he's not looking for a multi-year deal, which to me further goes along with the sign that the Steelers have probably given him that kind of money, that kind of deal, and they're not stressed about it, because I don't think to them they see this as some move that's going to make them a Super Bowl contender. They're looking to get a veteran quarterback to get them through this season so they can prepare for the season after that and make their big move to get a quarterback then. But to me, I think this, although one thing I might have gleaned from this is that this further confirmed that the Steelers are not thinking that he is some savior. He's just a guy that they think could be their guy for a year, and that is it.
Yeah, it feels kind of exactly what we thought when everything kind of shook out in the early portions of free agency, where it was, okay, Rodgers is likely going to be on the Steelers, and it's likely going to be just for this season. That kind of really seemed to, with what he was saying on Thursday, kind of seemed to drive that point home a little bit, where it's just like, okay, yeah, this is kind of what we thought was going to happen. I also think he's in no rush. Aaron Rodgers is in no rush to make a decision, nor does he have to by any sort of time period until, like Mike Tomlin said at owners meetings, really like training camp time, which is insane to think about, because if what I think Adam Schefter said earlier in the week, you want your quarterback to be whoever your new quarterback is going to be, Rodgers, throwing with the guys on your team. You want him to be getting work in. Yes, we saw the work that he got in with DK Metcalf out there, but you want him to be working with Pat Freiermuth. You want him to be working with Roman Wilson, with George Pickens. Like that is, I feel like, what you want to really kind of gain that chemistry early on to kind of, and I wonder if that part of it too would help Rodgers make the decision. I didn't love the fact, though, and maybe I just misinterpreted this a little bit when he was talking about his workout with DK. He kind of basically was like, yeah, I didn't really like 6 a.m. 6 a.m. is too early for me. DK is this super hard-driven guy, so 8 a.m., that was nice. And he's 42. He is going to be a Hall of Famer. That he has that, little bit of leniency in that way, and he can kind of dictate his own terms. But going back to what I was saying before, I think he's in no rush to make a decision because there is no rush for him. The Steelers aren't putting this pressure, it feels like, where it's, oh, we need you to make a decision by the draft. We need you to make a decision by the start of OTAs. And, I realistically think that we're probably going to see by the start of OTAs, Mason Rudolph working with this team until Rodgers decides, hey, it's a week before training camp. I guess maybe I have to figure this out.
Yeah, I think that's where I don't know when to actually be him saying there's not a deadline. Art Rooney saying in owners meeting saying, we're not pressed, but we're not going to wait around forever. I don't know when that actually is. I think it's kind of delicate because you're just kind of like, when you're sitting there at the negotiation table, you're trying to not play hardball. Like the way Aaron Rodgers described how the Jets kind of brought things up to him, and he was like, "How do you want us to put it?" And he was like, "Put what? What are you talking about?" And then there being some confusion about how they should handle things moving forward. It's stuff like that I think that like the Steelers, they want to avoid those kind of things, because like right now Aaron Rodgers, he goes on there, all he says are glowing things about the Steelers and the organization. Very much was trashing the Jets for how they've handled things there. But I think that the bottom line here is if you are a person that doesn't want Aaron Rodgers to be around, I think it looks further and further, to me at least, that he probably is going to pick the Steelers. He's at least picking the Steelers or retirement. That much is it's fairly certain. But I also think that the Steelers are I think it's important to remember the reason they're in this position is because they didn't want to overspend on or overcommit to any quarterback plan that involved them having to miss out on next year's quarterback plan, which is again why that informs how I have been setting up my draft boards for the Steelers.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you kind of likely feel like is going to happen. And I feel like everybody in Pittsburgh keeps saying, what at least it looks like at face value is, hey, okay, this team is going to either get Aaron Rodgers, they're going to either get Mason Rudolph, there's the potential that you could trade for Kirk Cousins after the draft, or draft a guy, but I don't likely think that that's going to happen in this year's draft class, and ride things out until next year when we know that the crop of quarterbacks are much more talented than this year. And again, that's not a knock. That's basically just unfortunately the reality of this year's quarterback classes. It's not nearly what it's been even the last handful of seasons. But it does feel like, okay, this, no matter who's under center this year, they're going to be a bridge to the future, to what next year's draft, likely in Pittsburgh, the draft is in Pittsburgh, but drafting a quarterback in Pittsburgh is going to bring.
I agree with you there. I want to talk about building this offense with or without Aaron Rodgers, what the Steelers need to be planning on this year to make that happen. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter here with Jenna Harner. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I remind you the show is also brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter here with Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Jenna, let's talk about the Steelers offense, again, with or without Aaron Rodgers. If it's Mason Rudolph, if it's Kirk Cousins, if it's name a rookie quarterback, I think there's a point for, and I continue to bang this table, and if you've heard the show, you're about to probably roll your eyes and say, the plan for the Steelers is to get the Steelers to the point where they were in 2004 when they drafted Ben Roethlisberger, where they had a really good offensive line, playmakers in the backfield at running back, playmakers in the receiver room, and so that when they drafted Ben Roethlisberger, it was plugging him into a unit that knew what it wanted, knew what it needed, and knew what it had to give the quarterback when he got there. They aren't that right now. I think that they got closer to it, if anything, last year because they simply just weren't in the bottom, third of the league or bottom 10th of the league in everything. But they still aren't in the position where you could just throw a rookie quarterback in there and they're going to be like a really good offense, kind of like how Jaden Daniels ended up working out for the Commanders here. What is the biggest thing that you see that the Steelers have to do to get there, again, regardless of whether Aaron Rodgers is in this offense or not for this upcoming season?
I think you need to draft a running back. And what a perfect year to draft a running back because of the fact that this class is so deep. And I don't think they're going to draft a first round running back. I genuinely would be a little bit surprised. I don't think I wouldn't, there's, a non-zero chance, but I don't see that being likely considering just how deep this is, because then you add a young rookie in with Kenneth Gainwell, with Jaylen Warren, and you have a really nice room. You have a really nice mix. And a lot of the backs in this year's class are really versatile guys. I know the Najee Harris situation left a lot of people frustrated after just kind of the lack of what we saw from Najee over his 4 years. And I think that there was a lot to do with that, not solely putting it on him. I think he was kind of put into a tough situation, but I think you need to do that because this is also the identity you want this team to have. We heard all time and time again last season, we want to be able to run the ball. We want to be able to win in the trenches. We want to be able to open up the passing game through the run game. So I think that to me is a massive priority. And then seeing what this group looks like when they're fully healthy, it was really interesting at work. The other day, we were talking with some people in the newsroom, and they were asking, who do you think the Steelers are going to draft first round? And they're like, well, who was the first round pick last year? And I was like, it was Troy Fautanu, which I can understand why, if you're not in the know every single day, that kind of evades your memory because of the fact that he was injured. So getting a healthy Troy Fautanu back, hoping that Broderick Jones can continue to grow and continue to develop in the way that you envisioned him when you traded up to draft him, and seeing Roman Wilson get involved too. Calvin Austin not having to play. I think I'll backtrack a little bit here. I think that in the receiver room with what you have, in the fact that you have DK Metcalf, so you're a true number one. You have George Pickens in 1A, 1B type style thing, even though to me, DK Metcalf is a 1, George Pickens is your 2, but they're on the same level too in that way. Then Calvin Austin kind of fits perfectly right there. Like Calvin Austin to me is that true wide receiver 3. Then you get Roman Wilson worked in here. I think that there is a lot of potential, but seeing this group fully healthy is going to be a massive part of, hey, what is their ceiling and how far can this group go? What steps can they take forward here, regardless of who is the quarterback?
No, I'm right with you there. Like this is the thing, is that there's potential in this offense, and it's been a while since I think we've said that and thought like highly of it, because we've seen George Pickens. Like we know DK Metcalf can light it up. He's been doing that. That's why he was a priority to get through a trade. We've seen Calvin Austin flash. We've seen Pickens. We haven't seen Roman Wilson, and I think that's a big question mark. I also wouldn't put it past the Steelers to draft a receiver on day 3 of the draft to add to this room and say, hey, here's 5 options. Let's see what happens. But I think there's a potential for this offense to find synergy. You have a young offensive line, a very young offensive line that, to me, that's the biggest thing that has to develop this year. Mike Tomlin's number one priority is, regardless of who signs at quarterback, your offensive line takes a serious step forward. So not only are you good at pass protecting, but you're a dominant run blocking team, whether you want to be a zone blocking team, whether you want to be a gap blocking team, power running team, whatever it is, you are going to be very good at it. And by the time this season ends, you may not have the best offense, but you're going to be really good at 1 or 2 things that you can say, hey, going into 2026, when you get the rookie quarterback, it's like, hey, this run game, said rookie running back, and Jaylen Warren, and the pass game with Metcalf, maybe if they tag Pickens or find a way to keep him around for another year or so, Pat Frymuth, like all these things, they're ready for you. They're here. They're late. The team is excited to have you and just plug you in. And all you got to do is stick to this system that we've developed to make something of it. That, to me, is the goal of this. But I think it all centers around is, can that offensive line rejuvenate the run game, make it a more explosive part of the offense, so then they achieve that balance that I think in the middle part of the year they started to find, Jenna. But then when you got to like that last 2 months of the season, even when they were winning some games, it wasn't the run game that was pushing them over the top. It was kind of Russell Wilson, and the pass game was working until it wasn't, and then the run game, they couldn't save them from anything.
No, and there were some glimpses. There are little flashes where you look at the run game last year and you say, oh, okay, there's the potential here. There, when all the cogs are working in the wheel the way that they're supposed to, then you can see and sit and say, all right, there is going to be the potential for this group to really take that step forward and be this dominant in the trenches run team that Arthur Smith preached left and right. But I think the rookie class, it's the perfect year to need to draft a running back, because there are so many options in, either Ohio State back, Tennessee's Dylan Sampson. I want them to draft Bashal Tutin just for the name. Like, guy is super talented. I want to call his name in highlights. I really do.
That would actually be really
but
funny.
any of those guys, any of those guys, to me, are really solid additions to this team that will fill kind of the need. And it's also too, I feel like when they drafted Najee, there was so much burden of the pressure of being the first round pick on his shoulders. Mm-hmm. And again, there was not a lot around him that was great. And it was kind of like he was the guy. You can draft one of these young running backs to be the guy, but they don't have to come in day one and be that guy. Because again, you have Kenneth Gainwell, you have Jaylen Warren, and you'll have this potential rookie here that is going to be really solid. That's probably going to get worked in very early, but it can be a little bit more of a slow and steady process rather than just completely throwing them in the deep end and seeing if they can swim in that way.
And again, to your point, like what Najee Harris inherited, he came into an offense that had old man Ben Roethlisberger, that had that Marquise Pouncey just retired. David DeCastro was supposed to be playing that season. He gets injured that spring, and then he has to retire. And so you have an offensive line that has nothing in front of it. Now, whoever this rookie running back is, not only do you have an offensive line that at least has been invested into and is young and is growing, but now you also have Jaylen Warren to take on the brunt of things. It's not all on, like, even if they go get like Amari and Hampton in the first round. I don't think they're doing that. No, I don't think they should do that. But they come into a situation where Jaylen Warren knows what this team's about, and that can kind of make things easier. It's another reason why I think they can be okay with waiting till the third, fourth, even now I wouldn't say the fifth round, but I'd say third and fourth round. That's the sweet spot for getting a running back in this draft class, where if they ended up with a RJ Harvey, a Dylan Sampson, as you said, a DJ Giddens, there are so many different options, I think, that could turn into your future starting running back that could be a difference maker, as long as, again, going back to it, the offensive line taking that step forward.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you need, because this offense is not going to take that step forward if the line doesn't as a whole. I think that they will. I think there is going to be a lot of progress, and I think that, again, having a healthy Troy Fautanu in there is going to do a lot of wonders, to the point where people are going to remember and say, oh yeah, no, that is why they drafted this guy in the first round last year. So it will be very exciting to watch that progression, no doubt. But I think that is going to be where everything stems from. And I also, especially with Zach Frazier, like, he is going to continue to take steps forward. And based on what we saw last year, there is so much potential in that way too.
Absolutely. I want to talk more about how the Steelers can stick to those plans, and to the plans that they need to stick to as they move forward in the NFL draft. We'll do that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Jenna Harner, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, remind you, the show is also brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming system and gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I stream so many different shows all the time myself. That's why it's great to have them all in one place. I don't game as much as I used to these days, but being able to have all my streaming services and gaming easily available on Amazon Fire TV is a wonderfully convenient opportunity. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K, 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. It's Amazon Fire TV. We're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter with Jenna Harner. Jenna, let's talk about the Steelers' plans with this draft, because I think you kind of align with me in what I've been saying for a while. I think what a lot of people are saying, like, we talked about this, Mike, on yesterday's episode, but when we look at how the Steelers are building right now, the goal for this team should not be to swing for the fences to try to win the Super Bowl right now. The goal should be to continue building your foundations so that you could be in the position in 2026 where you can look at that quarterback class, and if it is the quarterback class you want it to be, if the Lenore Sellers works out, if Arch Manning's available, if he's not available, if Nico Maliab is available, if Nussmeier from LSU is available, if there's whatever that class is, you have the confidence in your foundation to say, you know what, we can trade away two firsts and a second, a first, second, third, whatever it is. You can trade away these assets to go get that first overall pick, first 10 pick, whatever it is. You can make that move here. But again, I think to be ready for that, you have to get the picks right this year. And I think that's where it's going to differ, where people say, what should be the priority to set that foundation with more picks adding to it this year?
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's so interesting because I know there's been so much talk, at least around the league-wise, where everyone's saying there's so much uncertainty in the first round, and I do think that's going to be true. But for me, if I'm the Steelers, and this is no secret, you're going first-round defensive lineman. It's an absolute need. It's a need you need to fill because you trust and depend on and rely on this vaunted defense, as you talk about consistently. So that's where they need to go. I don't love the idea of a running back in the first round. I really don't. Right. I think Omarion Hampton is very talented. I know there is also a lot of conversation about, well, what if Shedeur falls to the Steelers at 21? And that's something where I'm really intrigued to see how the front office feels about him. If they feel this guy is going to be better than the guys potentially coming in next year's draft class. When it was at the end of the season, when I talked with Art Rooney Sr., I asked him, I said, how far in advance do you, this front office, your scouting department really look into quarterbacks? How far in advance do you guys look at these guys and kind of put together your lists? And he said about 1 to 2 years. So it does kind of make sense that they're having this plan. And again, also in the fact that this team is not going to be bringing in whoever they're bringing in at quarterback this year is going to potentially be their franchise guy for years to come. So to me, it just seems like it's been in that direction. But I just don't also see Shedeur Sanders falling to the Steelers at 21, nor do I see them trading up to get him at 21 or up from 21 to get him. So to me, it's just, you got to go defensive lineman in first round. I still think that third, fourth round running back. I do wonder, like you said, if they are going to get a receiver, but you have to, and this is how the Steelers draft anyway, too. They always tell us they go for that best available, but you have to fill some of the holes that you need right now in order to next year say, hey, look, we feel like we're really good about where we're at. We're just a quarterback and maybe another couple plug and play players away. But that's not what this team is right now. So it's just, hey, another first round lineman. That's what you want to build this team on. So I think they need to do that in that realm. And I think that is what they're going to do.
I think so too. I think that, we've talked about defensive line. They need foundational pieces to be there. And when I say a foundational piece, people say, isn't that a quarterback? Yes and no, but it has to be a quarterback that actually raises your ceiling, as Nick Farabaugh pointed out. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, no. I would completely agree with someone that's raising their ceiling in that way too. You have to bring somebody in that it's going to make this team immediately better. And again, there's a reason why there's been so much talk and conversation around this quarterback class as not being one of the strongest. Yes, Cam Ward is Cam Ward, but last year's draft, he would have been like the 5th or 6th quarterback, I think.
Yeah, I think I'd say about that. That's the thing, is that Cam Ward is the number one guy this year, but because of the lack of talent across the board, I was going over this. I did a live chat for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette where someone asked me, can you compare this to where some of these guys would be in a past year's draft class? And I was like, okay, let's look at the history of quarterbacks and where it is. And I went back and I looked at the 2019 NFL draft class where, I think Kyler Murray was the obvious number one, but in other years, if he was in the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield draft class, he wouldn't have been number one. Might have been number 4. And then if you look at the year after that, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, wouldn't have been number 1, maybe number 3, number 4. And so, but what happened in that draft class was this year, and this is the comparison I keep trying to show people, is that like this year, what happened in that draft class? You had 3 quarterbacks go in the first round. Kyler Murray, 1st overall, Daniel Jones at 6th overall, Dwayne Haskins, rest in peace, at 15th overall. And listen, Dwayne Haskins might have been something, but obviously Washington, they did not get the value that they wanted in drafting him at 15th overall. But that's the thing there, is that because teams were thirsty for a quarterback, because they were hungry, everything looked good to them. And that's the thing. Don't come to the table hungry and just eating whatever. You got to come to the table with a plan, ready to go. Because even though you are hungry, you got to make sure you're eating the right things. And that's where, if I'm the Steelers, I don't make that mistake this year. That's why I'm looking at, when there's a consensus that says, hey, the D tackles, there's several guys that could be foundational franchise pieces there. If one of those top cornerbacks fall to you, and you think that could be your long-term partner with Joey Porter Jr., awesome. Look at those types of things. But when you're looking at this class, see things like compared to the 2019 class, where it's they had guys go in the first round, but people said going into it, there were a lot of question marks. And then afterwards, it was dang, that was not the year to be going for the quarterback situation. I think that's the pit that the Steelers don't need to fall into.
Yeah, and I think too, the fact that they have the hindsight that they do on the way that Kenny Pickett and it all shook out in that direction, I think that they're not, I wouldn't say an overcorrection, but I think there's going to be a lot more cautiousness in all of it.
They've learned their lesson. Bless you.
Excuse me. The allergies are hitting hard already. Oh boy. But I think that there's going to be, and not that there wasn't the diligence, but I think there's going to be, it won't necessarily be that, oh, we have to get this guy. Like there's going to be a lot more. Okay, we're going to make sure that this guy is going to be our guy. And there's no guarantees, obviously, but I think there's going to be a lot more in terms of in next year's draft class. This is going to be our guy. We know it's going to be him. I also think too, it's just going to be so interesting. The fact that the draft is here in Pittsburgh, I think that's just going to make it a wildly insane story on top of everything that it already is.
It's going to be a crazy story if the Steelers trade up and go get their future franchise quarterback prospect in the city of Pittsburgh on the North Shore in front of this place is going to be going nuts. I am that's good luck getting around Pittsburgh. I'm telling everyone, if you live here, you're going to want to book vacations for late April when the draft comes to town in 2026. But again,
and rent your house out too, because my gosh, the money that can be made.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing there. Look at me catching my AirPod. But anyways, Jenna, lots of great points there. We're going to have you back on next week, the morning of the draft is when you'll be able to watch that show. We're going to record that the day before the draft. We're going to do our full first round mocks like we did last year, comparing side by side where we see things going. But until then, Jenna Harner, let people that can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
You can find me on Twitter at Jenna Harner 11, Instagram, Jenna_Harner, and locally in Pittsburgh or online, WPXI, the NBC affiliate. I'm trying to think. We're just getting ready for the draft too. So if you're in Pittsburgh draft night, and the Steelers have made their pick at 21 overall, or depending on what happens, and you want to tune into WPXI from 11:15 to 11:30, we'll be kind of doing a little extended breakdown of everything. So once they make their pick, definitely tune into that.
Absolutely. She's Jenna Harner. I'm Chris Carter. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, all the social media, same handle everywhere at Carter Critiques. Read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com, including my latest live chat where I chatted with a bunch of our subscribers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and answered a ton of their questions. Check that out there. And you can always check me out here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. Back here next week on the start of the draft week here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.